Have you ever started changing your life, trying to improve your life, and suddenly you felt guilty? At the moment you start growing or doing something different, it feels like you're doing something wrong. Maybe the people around you start acting distant, or maybe your mind starts whispering thoughts like, who do you think you are? If you ever felt like this, you're not broken, you're evolving. Because real growth often feels like betrayal. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're finally doing something that's right and what's meant for you. We spend years building an identity, one that fits the expectations of our environment, our culture, our family. So this can be religion, gym, an activity that you do, sports, people that we follow. In a sense, that becomes our identity, and we will fight tooth and nail to maintain our identity. And when we start changing that identity, it feels like we're tearing down our world. As philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche says, one must still have chaos in oneself to give birth to a dancing star. That chaos, that confusion, is part of our transformation. You're not lost, you're being remade. Psychologically, your mind and body resist change because change is danger. It scares us. Even if it's toxic, even if we know that we're in a toxic environment or not an environment that should be for us, we will fight tooth and nail to maintain or stay in there. So when growth comes, as I said, we interpret danger as betrayal, like what are you doing? But the resistance is not a sign to stop. It's proof that you're moving beyond your limits or moving in the correct direction. And today, we'll be covering why your growth feels like a continuous betrayal to yourself, and using anime characters that have certain situations which we can interpret to help oneself to understand growth and why it does come as betrayal. And before I get into the video, I have been seeing the comments, so hopefully this video will have better audio. So if so, leave a comment down. If not, you can continue to roast me. But let's get into the video. Anime does cover a lot of growth. There's beautiful growths that have been written and some animes that I've not seen yet. So if you do have any anime that you want me to watch, read, or any mangas that you want me to check out, leave it in the comments. But in terms of growth, what I'll be covering here are growth in a sense being perceived as betrayal, or how others may have seen it as betrayal. There's different characters, and I feel like there's a character that came into my head when I was doing this was Sasuke. And I think Sasuke, in a sense, chose isolation and decided to choose himself. Because in a sense, his vision demanded him to walk by himself. His journey or what he wanted required him to be alone. In a sense, with the methods and everything he decided to do, I do not agree in terms of the methods of the madness. However, but I understand that feeling of needing to step away, and sometimes the best change or the biggest change usually comes when you step away from people that know you as your old self, and for you to become different and become the self that you truly want to be, sometimes you have to distance yourself from them because they may see precautions and feel like you don't have to do this. However, sometimes in a person's life, you feel like you have to go on this path and do what you have to do to be whole or achieve what you want to do. Growth in a sense does mean solitude. Solitude isn't loneliness, but it's usually when transformation begins. And in Stoic philosophy, it teaches us that what disturbs us is not the event itself, but our judgment of it. If people call you selfish for trying to improve yourself, it's usually remember that judgment says more about their fear of change than your pursuit of it. Because a lot of us try to prevent individuals from doing certain things because we're cautious of it. And we want to stop them because we see the dangers of certain things that they may do, or we feel like they'll be different to us and we're used to that old self. So we try to prevent people from being different because we're used to that old self and it benefits us. However, sometimes you have to go as an individual. You have to become the person you want to become, not just feel or be the person that people expect you to be if you don't feel whole. And in a sense, when this situation happens, I feel like as a person, individual, when you're on your pursuit of changing, You don't need to panic. You don't have to start thinking about other things. Just continue your journey. In a sense, the silence or letting everyone go, the silence that you require, it means that you're entering a new phase of your life, a new story, a new chapter. You're building yourself and becoming the person that you may desire. And the second character that I'll be getting into is the big bad, the one and only Griffith, the man that sacrificed all in the dark mirror of ambition, the man that will do anything to achieve his dream. And I would like to say, I'm not justifying his actions. I think everything he did was wrong and do not condone it. However, in terms of what Griffith is such a fascinating character is because, in a sense, he stayed true to himself. His way of doing it was crazy and outrageous and very concerning. However, in terms of really looking and understanding Griffith, is a character that is very complex but very simple. It is what it is. It is his dream or bust. That's it. And I think in terms of what my interpretation, what I'll be using here is that Griffith, in a sense, represents, or what he done represents, that every dream demands a price. And to climb to the top or be at the top, you must really let go of certain things that may be holding you down. And sometimes that means betraying the vision of what others may have of you or what they believe you are to be. So a lot of us have a lot of expectations, or people believe us to be in a certain way, and that when we change or we do certain things that are outside of that, individuals will say that you betrayed or you changed. And I think in terms of what Griffith, or in terms of the action I'm trying to explain, is that a lot of people will change, and in terms of to be who they want to be, they do require the to change. And sometimes we're not happy with certain people changing because we automatically have a sense of what we want that person to be. However, that person has or wants to become the certain person, they do require to make this change. And I think as Carl Jung said that, or talks about the shadow, it's a part of us that we deny and repress or fear. And I think growth means confronting this shadow. If you ignore it, it controls you. If you face it, it empowers you. I think, in a sense, with Griffith, at the end of the day, he dreamed too big. And I think in terms of what Griffith, I would say, is he was willing to do anything to achieve his dream, and even if that is humanity. I think in terms of what Griffith represents is that sometimes we do have to, in a sense, betray the ideas that people form of us to be the person that we want to be. For example, parents want you to be a certain way, but it's not what you want to be. In a sense, you may distance yourself or change yourself to challenge this idea that your parents have to become the person you want to be. Obviously, in terms of Griffith, it's very, very, very extreme. In terms, I'm not asking anyone to do anything crazy like Griffith. However, in terms of sometimes in life, we require to change or betray the beliefs that people have set upon us. And in a sense, a key thing, don't lose yourself. Don't lose that humanity of who you are. But sometimes you're required to do certain things that betray the things that people have set up for yourself, like parents, like friends. And the last character that I'll get into is Thorfinn. In a sense, betraying your past self to become free. I think Thorfinn's story is quite a fascinating story because it's an individual that has gone through a lot and in an environment that is quite brutal. I think in terms of the story of, or Thorfinn's story, it shows that the human kind of betrayal, the betrayal of your past self. In a sense, he was raised in violence and the entire world expects him to be violent, and the world says violence is how it is, this is who you are. But over time, we see a character challenging or battling that they want peace. They don't understand why violence is required. However, everything in their life says violence, violence, violence. And in a sense, if you are not violent, people will call you weak. And if you do not live by the Viking way, which is killing people, slaughtering people, you are going against the Viking way. However, in terms of what Thorfinn does, he says, nah, I don't want to be that. And since he wanted to be free because he was traumatized by the events and the things that he done. But Thorfinn was only a child when he was introduced to his life. However, as a child, there's a lot of understanding of things that you're going to do in terms of killing people and all these things. Thorfinn went through a lot. In the sense, he had to, one, accept that he done what he done, but for him to become the individual that he wanted to become, he must set himself free. He must, one, accept his past and forgive his past. But in terms of everything that he does now is a totally and against everything that he was brought up to be. And I think as a philosopher said, Soren Kierkegaard, is in a sense becoming an individual. It's to live it's to live by what you believe in, break out the crowd. And sometimes breaking out the crowd or being different makes you feel alone. I think growth, in a sense, will always demand you to leave a lot of things behind. And sometimes it's your habits, sometimes it's your relationships, sometimes it's your old self. But in a sense, it's about understanding to truly be yourself, or you want to be different to what the mold is perfectly fine. And even if others say you may be betraying the religion or other things, or things where if you don't feel comfortable or it's not who you want to be, you're just living a life that's not yours. I think you have to be true to yourself, and your life and expectations and things that you go through mold you to be who you are. And since you grow up and you get to make your own decisions, I think you should be comfortable making the own decisions that you want to do in your life, but also understanding that a lot of people may have certain things they may disagree with you with your new change. But at the end of the day, if you are comfortable and feel like this is the life you want to live, then that's the life you want to live. And so what? And that requires you to stand alone. If that requires you to stand alone, stand alone. As long as you're happy with who you want to be. And when you're going through a lot of things like this, I think the things what I would advise is that, or things that you need to remember, is that you need to accept discomfort. I think discomfort is key. It's like going to the gym and doing pull-ups or doing whatever. Certain things will hurt you, do all these things. However, your muscles repair. Your muscles get used to it. You're growing, in a sense. Your muscles grow after that. And accepting that discomfort allows you to understand that you're going to be fine. And you need to understand that it is good. You're changing. I think there's other things I would say that are key. I think reflection is key. Meditation is key. As I always say, meditation is key to me because it allows you to let all those things that are in your mind, the things that you've gone through, if you just allow it to stay in your mind for so long, it builds up and it clogs your mind. And then, in a sense, you having a conversation that you had months ago still in there, but you haven't let that go. I think in terms of medication is key because it allows you to let things go and it allows you to reflect and move on. And I think also the key things I'll say is that surround yourself with people that don't limit you and allow you to change over time. I think change is required. I think everyone changes in life. I think people don't understand that change is just part of life. I think that's a issue because it can limit yourself, because they will have a certain expectation of how you want to be, and once you go above that or below that, they're just going to be on your ass and be distant or be iffy because they have set a standard for yourself. And the last two things I'll say is that forgive your past self because you did what you need to do to survive. However, you're learning to live now. So whatever you've been through, you survived through it. But now it's about the decision. Do you want to live or continue to survive? I think every person deserves and is obligated to live. I think also patience is key. True growth is silent and slow. And sometimes it just takes time. When you plant a tree, it takes thousands of years, but it lasts for thousands of years. You know what I'm saying? So like, I honestly believe that with growth, it takes time. And it may feel like betrayal, but that's just part of it. And then the last